Let's talk about fill. To me, the fill is the most important component of a bag. Materials are important, template size is important, but the fill really dictates how the bag plays. And you can take two identical bags, change just the fill in them, and they're going to play completely different. I wanted to do this video. I've been wanting to do this video for a while now to talk about fill, and when I describe fill in a bag, what I'm referring to, because I like questions sometimes when people ask, well, what do you mean when you say flat? What do you mean when you say disc or round or whatever? And so I wanted to take a moment to explain that. I'll try to do some pictures and show you what I'm talking about. I've got bags of different fill up here. These are all different shapes of fill, different weights of fill, different sizes of fill. And this is just a small example. There are a lot of, there's a bigger variety of fill than what I have here. If I could sew, I would be dangerous because I love doing this type of stuff. I take bags, I'll open them up sometimes, and I'll change the fill in it, and I'll go out and try them. I can't sew well enough to ever sell bags. I can stitch them up enough to close them, but I love to experiment with different types of fill. In fact, when I first started playing cornhole years ago, I would eventually get to the point where I would open bags up because I wanted to know, why does this bag bounce more than that bag? Why does this bag drip in the hole more than that bag? Why does this bag do this and that one does that? I used to open up and look at the fill and try to figure, okay, this one bounces more than that one. What's different about the fill? At that time, bags were not as expensive as they are now, so I could do it now. It'd be a little harder to do, but I used to love to do that. I actually have a demonstration here I want to show you guys as well to talk about hole filling. I've done this on a larger scale a long time ago. I scaled it down, trying not to make a huge mess here. So hopefully it'll still get the point across what I'm trying to show to you. Actually, I have an overhead camera up here. You can't see that, but I've got it up here, so I can give you a top-down view. When I do this, the top-down, you'll see why. The top-down will give you a better view of what's going on here. Hopefully the two-camera setup works. If you're watching this, it probably worked. If it didn't work, I'm probably not going to upload this. I'll do it differently. So hopefully it works out well. I've also got a bag that I want to open up and show you the insides of it. Because when I talk about fill in a bag, I classify fill in three categories: disc, flat, round. I only put them in three categories. There's a lot more than three different categories. One, you've got different shapes, more different shapes than that. You've also got different sizes. Round, you can have, different sizes of round. You can have different weights of round. You can have different sizes of disc and different sizes of flat and round. There's such a huge variety. But for me, 99% of fill will fit in one of those three categories. Every now and then there's a unique fill. Maybe a company makes their own fill, makes something completely out of the ordinary that doesn't really fit in those categories. But 99% of fill that I review fits in those categories. And when I review bags, the reason I don't go more in depth is because I don't typically open the bags I review. I just don't. And part of it is because to me, the fill is the secret sauce, the magic potion of that bag company. Because that's the one thing that bags companies can do to distinguish their bag from someone else. For the most part, the materials, everybody can see the materials. Every now and then a company will find a new material that another company doesn't have yet, but eventually someone else is going to find that material, and eventually everybody gets that material and everybody uses it. But the fill is something that they can put in a bag that can make it their bag and make their bags play uniquely compared to other companies. So I don't always like to open bags and give you, oh, this bag is 25% this, 30% this, 45% this. Like, I don't want to go that in depth because I feel like that's a kind of a violation to the bag. I mean, if you want to buy a set of bags and open them up and do that, you can. I just don't feel right doing that. So that's why I don't dive that deep into them or open bags up. And so by not opening bags, when I'm just trying to feel inside of a bag, it's tough to really tell exactly. I mean, I have a good idea. I can tell the shape of it. But sometimes when there's a mixture, maybe there's 10% round, it's 90% flat, 10% round. Sometimes it's hard to find those round pieces in there. Sometimes all I find is a flat, and I'll say, hey, this is a 100% flat fill bag, when really it's 90% in 10. So I can get a few things wrong there, but I do have a set of bags here that I want to open up. And the reason I got these set of bags to open up was because when I did the review, I was told by some of the fans that I was wrong. Even the owner of the company actually commented and told me that I was wrong. And one of the things I was wrong about was the fill, which I didn't think I was. So, and the bags I reviewed, this review was like 3 months ago. The bags I reviewed, I borrowed. They weren't mine, so I sent them back to the people I borrowed from, and I went and bought a set of bags, paid full price for them, paid $85, 90 bucks for the bags, because I felt like by buying the bags, it gives me the right to open them up, right? I paid for them. They're my bags. I can do what I please with them. So I'm going to open them up. I was going to be petty and kind of call the company out at the time. If I had done this 2.5 months ago, I would have. I don't think I'm going to be quite as petty this time. I don't know. We'll see. That's towards the end. Well, I'll save that towards the end. I'm going to open that up. I'll show you the fill. And I've opened the bag. I've looked in. I haven't dumped the fill out. So maybe I am wrong. Maybe I got the fill wrong, and we'll find out together if I was right or wrong on that. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into the meat of this and talk about fill. And I want to start off by explaining the difference between what I call disc, flat, and round. Those are the three categories. Round is really simple. Round fill is it's just a round like a BB. Like a BB, it's like a marble, a small marble. It's perfectly round. And I'll try to get some pictures here if I can, get some close-up pictures. I don't really have a great camera that has a really zoom-in lens. So hopefully I can get a good enough picture and show you on the screen. But round is what you think it is, right? It rolls. When you feel inside of a bag, you're going to feel it's going to roll. There's no flat sides. It rolls perfectly fine. Like I said, it feels like almost like a BB. There are different sizes. You can get really fine, small round. You can get larger round. The next category I have is what I call flat. And with flat fill, it's the fill that has it. Basically, to me, I think a flat fill is if you take a round fill and you just squash it down, but not all the way. And so you have two flat sides, and then the rest is kind of round, but it's kind of elongated. And what you get is a fill that will roll, but as it rolls, it kind of stops, and you squeeze the two flat sides, and you can roll it again, and you roll it again, and so you feel it kind of clunkily rolls, if that makes it. It rolls really clunkily, rolls really clumsy. I don't know. It's like it rolls, it stops, rolls, stops, rolls, stops. So you have the flat sides, but then you have other sides that aren't flat that kind of move. And then the last one is the disc, and the disc is almost perfectly flat. It's almost like a plate or something. It's like if you took that round fill and you just squashed it completely flat. It's still got some thickness to it, but in a bag, like it's really hard because I squeeze down and it flattens out. I can't get this to roll. It's so flat it won't roll. And that's how when I'm taking a bag, I will take a set of bags and I will feel in there. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see if I can roll the fill. If I can squeeze the fill down, it doesn't roll, it's the disc fill. If I can roll it, but I feel it kind of clunk and stop, roll, stop, it's the flat fill. But if it rolls really smooth and perfectly, it's the round fill. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Again, sometimes I'll mention there's different sizes of round or different sizes of flat, something like that. But I'm not trying to dive that deep into the fill when I'm talking about fill. I just want to categorize because to me, disc, flat, and round all have characteristics of how they play, and that's why I'm trying to distinguish between those two so I can give you a better idea of why this bag plays that way. It's because it has mostly disc, or because it has mostly round, or whatever. And sometimes as players, you learn, hey, I like the fill in this bag. Well, if I can tell you this is mostly round fill, then you know, okay, I like round fill. You know to go look for a bag that has round fill. Or I tell you that this bag is 100% disc fill, and you know, hey, I love the way this bag feels, the way it plays. You know, you want to go find 100% disc filled bag. So I can help you determine what type of bags that maybe will fit your preferences, maybe play the way you like. Now, I'm going to jump into this demonstration because as I go to this demonstration, I'm going to talk to you about why certain fills play certain ways and maybe show you in a visual of what I'm talking about. So what I have here is just a little shot glass, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and do it here. I'm going to start with the disc fill. This is the 100% disc fill here. And the reason I have these three fills, again, you can get different weights, different sizes and whatever, but the reason I have these three here is because I measured them, I weighed them on a scale, and basically one shot glass full of each of these weighs about the same. And I think weight is critical here because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down here, I'm going to open it up, and I want you to see how well this fill spreads out. Like I said, I've done this on a larger scale, and it worked really well. It's a great visual to show you when I talk about certain fill that hangs on a hole. I talk about how disc fill hangs on the hole and how the flat really compresses, it doesn't spread out. This is a visual where I think it'll show you what I'm trying to explain. So let me go ahead and get this set up here. Like I said, I haven't done this. This is working better than I expected. We get this set up right here. Now I'm just going to lift this. I'm going to do my best just to lift this glass up, and I'll even show you the overhead and let you see how it spreads out. But I want to lift this up, and what I want you to look at, if this goes like it did large scale, is see how far this fill spreads, how much of it stays stacked on top of each other. So here we go. Fingers crossed this works like I want it to. We'll lift this up and boom. Okay, so you can see this first circle here. I would say 95%, maybe 98% of the fill stayed within that circle, and you see a mound. It's almost like a mountain or a volcano. It kind of peaks up the top. It's pretty thick here at the top, right? You can see that. So you get a few that have sprinkled way out here, but most of it stays right in that tight circle, which is the expectation that I had. It's actually performed like I thought it would. This is what I did, and this is why I say flat fill tends to hang on the hole, because you see how it is, right? If this fill was in a bag, and maybe this corner over here was the hole, right? This fill comes and it sits. It's not moving. You see that this fill is content staying stacked on top of each other. It's just not going anywhere. So let me clean this up real quick, and then I'm going to jump into the next one for you. I got that cleaned up. I cut that out. I don't know if you want to see me just clean it up the fill. Took a little longer than I wanted to. I'm going to jump in now and that was the disc fill. I hope I mentioned that. That was disc fill. I'm going to jump in now to the round. I want to go from disc to round, kind of the two outer edges, the two extremes, and then we'll jump back into the flat fill here. And as I'm pulling this round filling to set up, I will mention the advantages of flat disc fill is the forgiveness. The forgiveness on it, it's a soft landing. It has very little kick to it. Doesn't have a lot of movement. So if you don't throw a flat bag, that's where you benefit from that disc fill. It's a super forgiving bag on the landing, but the trade-off is you lose some of that whole friendliness. As you see here, it just wants to stack and stay mounted up. It doesn't want to spread out, right? Now, we're going to go to the round fill, which again is the other extreme here. And I'll get this set up here. I'm going to do the same thing, right? I've got this set up here. I'm going to lift it up, and I want you to see, remember, that disc fill stayed pretty much all within this first circle here. About 95, 98% of it stayed there. A few sprinkled out, but most of it stayed right in the middle, and it was mounted up pretty high, right? I mean, it wasn't as high as this, but it was mounted up pretty high. Now, this is the round fill, and I'm going to show you why I say round fill is more hole friendly. So let's watch and see what happens here. As you can see, you still have a good majority of it in the middle here, but I would say that's 60 to 70% in the middle and 30 to 40% out. And I mean, you've got it all the way to the outer edges. You've got a good chunk of it out there. And this is what I mean when I say round fill is more hole friendly. And understand, when I'm doing these tests, this is just under 2 ounces of weight of fill. A bag is 15.5 to 16.5 ounces. So you've got not quite 8 times, because you got to take the weight of the materials, but maybe 6 to 7 times this amount of fill. So you look at that and then take 6 to 7 times of this, even spread out more, and it really magnifies how much of that fill is going to the extremes of the bag. And when it goes out to those extremes, that's when you get those bags that sit there and slowly drip in, because the fill is just constantly moving. And as you have a bag that is hanging in the hole, so you've got a bag that's hanging in the hole, and this fill is spreading out, eventually it starts funneling its way down to the low point. Because of gravity, it's pulling that fill in. So you've got fill that's still moving, it's spreading out, and as more fill comes in, it's pushing that other fill out, and eventually it's working its way around until it gets to this low point, and then it starts filling this corner up until the weight starts pulling the bag more and more in. And that's why you get bags that sit there for a few seconds and just slowly drip and then eventually just fall right in. That's what's going on, is that fill is actually still moving inside. And that's where you get the benefit of the round fill and the hole friendliness, is because that fill wants to find a flat spot. As much of this fill as it can is on the surface. I would say a majority of this fill is sitting on the table here. You've got a few pieces stacked on top of here, but that's because they eventually ran out of places to go and they kind of got settled in between 2 or 3 other pieces of round fill. But for the most part, all of it's flat. Whereas that flat fill, a lot of it was, I would say a majority of it was stacked on top of something else. And so this is what you're looking for. You want fill that wants to move, it's active, that spreads out. The further it goes, the more active, the more hole friendly that bag is going to be. I'm gonna go and clean this up, and we'll jump into the flat fill. Okay, I have that cleaned up now, and that was the round fill. Now I'm going to jump into what I call the flat fill, which is, again, thicker than the disc fill, but it still has two flat sides on it, so it's not fully round. And on the round fill, as you can see, it is more hole friendly, or it's more active, it moves more. But what you sacrifice with the round fill is control. A round fill is going to kick more, it's bouncier, it's more active, so it's hard to control. You have to be more accurate with round fill, and you have to have a flat bag. If you don't throw a flat bag, round fill is going to punish you. And that's why a lot of people don't like 100% round fill bags, because if you're not perfectly flat, it does kick and it moves and it makes it tougher to control. Now on this flat fill, I classify flat fill in the flat category, and I tend to categorize it more with disc fill than I do with round fill, and you'll see here why, because it behaves more like disc fill. Now I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up here. As you remember, the disc fill stayed inside the inner circle, the round spread it out pretty well. Let's see what happens with this flat fill when I lift this up. And as you can see, it's similar, maybe even worse than the disc fill. It stays really well together. It doesn't move. Again, because you have those flat sides, it's content being stacked on top here. I don't know how deep that is, how many levels of flat fill that is. It's deeper, it's taller than the round fill was. The round fill went all the way to the outer edge of this black. You got a few pieces out here, but I would say 99% of that fill is inside the inner circle there. It's almost worse. And to be fair, if I used a heavier, which I've got a heavier, maybe I'll do another example with a heavier version of flat fill. I think that may spread out more. But again, I picked this because it matched the weight of the other ones. And this is why flat fill, when I see bags that have a blend of disc and flat, I still say they play more like a disc fill bag or a flat fill bag. I don't really consider them mixed fill because this behaves a lot like that disc fill. What you get with this is a bag that has a little more thickness to it. When you go 100% disc fill, you typically have thinner bags unless you go with lighter weight disc where you put more in, or you get a like this right here. This is a super lightweight disc fill. It becomes more like a filler bead. It doesn't add a lot of weight, but it adds volume, and you can add a lot of this to there to get the bag a little thicker. But companies use this flat fill to still get the same forgiveness that you get with disc fill, but the bag is not as loose and floppy. So if you want a fuller bag, but still a forgiving bag, you want flat fill, not disc. Right? Let me pull this up, and I'll try to get this heavier, thicker, a little bit thicker flat fill. Let's see how that responds, see if it responds any differently than this flat fill does. Okay, I cleaned that up. Now I want to jump in, as I mentioned, to this a little bit heavier, a little thicker flat fill to see if we get a better reaction than what I got with that. This demonstration is actually working pretty much like I expected to. I'm surprised. I wasn't sure. Like I said, I've never done it on this scale, so I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. It's working pretty well. Hopefully this is giving you a good idea of how fill plays, and when I talk about why flat fill is not as hole friendly, why flat fill tends to hang on the hole over round fill, this kind of gives you that visualization so you can understand maybe a little bit about what's going on inside the bag. Let's go ahead and set this up. And as I mentioned, this is still flat fill, but this is a little heavier, thicker. This is more like almost closer to a cylinder, where that was a little flatter. So let's see what kind of reaction we get here. As you can see, it's spread out a little more. You've got some more going out, but it still stays pretty well stacked. And again, this is my experience. Anytime you have flat sides on the fill, any kind of flat sides, it finds those flat sides find a place to stop and settle, and they don't move unless something else reacts with it. So a bag that's sitting up there that has this fill in there, it's going to stop, it's going to hang, and then the next bag comes in, it's going to bump into it. And when it bumps into it, it gets that fill moving again, and then that's why sometimes you get bags that'll tumble in. But again, you still see that it still stays mostly within this inner round circle. Remember that round went way out here. Maybe I'll put some pictures up of in case you forgot, of the different fills, the disc, the round, and then the flat, and you can compare them visually and see how different the round is from the flat. And this is not like, I'm not doing multiple takes of this to try to get exactly where I want. I'm just, you can do this at home on yourself. You can order this fill, from companies, and you can try this on your own. If you've got some old bags, open some old bags, you can try this. But in your mind, if you think about it, round beads, round marbles, round BBs, they're going to move. Again, try to stack them. They're not going to stack. Try to stack flat cylinders. Try to stack, it's like stacking, almost like stacking Legos, right? They fit together, they stick together, they stay there, right? But if you take marbles, dump a bunch of marbles out, they spread out. You don't dump a bunch of Legos out, they kind of hit, and they'll spread some, but a lot of them stay stacked on top of each other. And that's what you've got here with the fill. And this is why you don't get that drippiness necessarily with flat fill, because it's content to set like this. I'm going to clean this up real quick, and then I have a bag here, a Ziploc bag, that I've done a custom blend up, and I'm going to show you what happens when you blend the flat and round and the mixture, and what kind of difference that makes in this demonstration. So let me clean this up real quick for you. Okay, I've cleaned that up, and now, as I mentioned, I want to jump into this mixed blend, and this is a mixture of round, flat, and disc in here. I've actually got a couple different sizes and weights of round, a couple different sizes and weights of flat, and then just this one size of disc. So it's 5 different types of fill. 3 of it is flat, 1 disc, 2 flat, and then 2 are round. But I want to show you what happens when you take a blended or a mixed fill, how it reacts compared to the 100% of flat, disc, or round, and give you kind of an example of that. Let's see here if I can set this up. All right, perfectly. So again, this is the mix. This is the mix. And again, this is not, I didn't really put a whole lot of thought into mixing. I just mixed up some difference to show you what would be in a bag that was mixed. Most bags probably have 2 or 3 parts of mixture. I don't know why I put 5 in here. I did. But anyway, let's go ahead and try this out, and let's see what happens. So as you can see, again, most of it stays in the middle because there's still a lot of flat there, but you do start seeing more of it spreading out. Again, there's more on these outer edges than what was with the 100% flat, but nowhere near like it was with 100% round. And this is where companies now start making their mixtures and their blends to find a happy medium between the whole thickness of the round and the forgiveness of the flat fill. And by mixing the two, you can start, if I tweak this, if I added more round to this, I would get more beads out, and I would get a more hole friendly bag. If I add more flat, I'd keep more of it in, and I get a more forgiving bag. And so you find that balance. between the round and the flat, and even mixing the disc in, and then you've got to factor in the weights, like I said, the different weights of the bags to get the right weight that you want for that bag. And that's what, as I say, this is the magic formula, the secret sauce for bag companies, is their mixture and the ratios and even the type of fill that they use and how the bag plays and how it performs, and trying to find that balance to get the bag to play well for every type of player. And it's really tough. It's really tough to find a bag that plays perfectly for every player. And that's why I tell people all the time is find a bag that fits your style of play, that plays the best for you. Don't worry about what other people throw. Who cares? Even for the pro players, I don't care what the pro player throws. The bag, I mean, look, if you like a pro player, you can support that company. But just because that pro player is throwing an 11 PPR with a certain type of bag doesn't mean you're going to throw the same. Right? It doesn't mean that you're going to have that level of success unless you have the exact same type of throw. Which is why people ask me all the time, why don't I have a bag ranking? Well, if I rank bags, I'm ranking bags based on how they play for me, but they're going to be different for you. Like, I like a bag that has more round. I would rather have more round. In fact, I would love to have, if it was up to me, I would probably go 75, 80% at least round and the rest flat, or even 100% round. On my slower bags, when I throw a carpet bag, a really slow, sticky carpet bag, I want 100% round fill. I want that bag to bounce. I want that bag to move. I want to be able to throw cuts where I can make 90-degree turns with that bag. But as I go faster, I want to add a little more forgiveness, a little more flat fill in there. So as I go to my fast bags, I'm okay with fast bags being more flat or more disc, because if I'm throwing a faster bag, I'm just running the hole. I want a bag that's going to not punish me if my bag doesn't come out perfectly. It's not going to punish me if I don't land exactly right. I want a bag that's going to be more forgiving, so I'm okay with that. And in between, when I throw those hybrid bags, I don't mind a mixture, but I do like sometimes having a hybrid bag that's 100% round, and then having a hybrid bag that's a little bit of a mix. I don't always want a hybrid bag that's 100% flat for my throw and my style of game, but for you, it may be exactly what you need, exactly how, it may be the bag that plays the best for you. So keep that in mind. And that's why when I talk about fills, if you find a bag that you throw well and you like, figure out what fills in that bag, and then maybe try to find another bag that has that fill. And sometimes the same companies will use the same fill across bags. Sometimes they mix and change. They change the fill from bag to bag. Reach out to the company if you like a specific brand. Say, hey, I like this bag. Reach out and say, hey, do you have a bag that's faster or slower that uses that same exact fill ratio? Or find an unstamped bag company and say, hey, I really love the fill in this bag, but I like the materials in this bag. Can you make me a bag, that bag with this fill in it? And if it's unstamped, they can do it. If they're stamped bags, they don't have that freedom with the stamps, because those bags have been approved. They're supposed to be made the way they were approved. They're not supposed to tweak that. But if it's unstamped, if it's ACO stamped, they can make unstamped, or if it's TCL, they can make unstamped. ACL, they have to make the bags the way it's approved. But other companies can make the bag, customize it the way you want, and then you can play around that way. Find out, hey, I love this fill in this bag, but I like the way this bag plays, and tweak it. And the other thing comes important is hand feel, right? People love the hand feel of the disc fill. Disc fill gives you that more fluid hand feel. Round fill, it's moving. It's more squishy. When you squeeze round, because round fill doesn't compress, it squeezes. So sometimes people hate the feel of 100% round fill in their bags, because they feel like the bags are constantly moving when they throw them, and they don't like that. Whereas a flat fill compresses, and it wants to stay put. It'll stay there. Round fill doesn't want to stay there. The moment you start to throw any bit of tweak in that bag, if you leave any room there, that round fill is moving to the empty spot, moving to the bottom of that bag, and that's where you get a little bit of that movement in the bag, and sometimes it can throw people off with their throw. Now, let me clean this up, and then we'll jump in. I'm going to open that bag up. We'll take a look at the inside of an actual bag and talk about the fill that's in there. Okay, I have this bag here, and as I mentioned, this was a review I did about 3 months ago. I'm not going to name the bag here. I'm not going to be that petty. As much as I want to, I'm not going to do it. If you really want to know, you can probably go back about 3 months or so back and look through comments. You can probably figure it out from the comments in there. But I did a review, and I mentioned the fill in the bag was it was pretty much mostly flat, if not 100% flat, a mixture of different flat fills. And what I mean, it was a mixture of the disc and the flat. I did not feel any round fill in this bag. And I was told I was wrong. Even the owner of the company told me that I was wrong, that the bag was not mostly flat. Now, in their defense, maybe they call disc flat, and the thicker they don't call flat. I don't know what they call that. And that's why, part of why I did this video was I wanted to kind of give clarification when I say flat, what I mean, when I say disc, what I mean, because there's no standard for that. I mean, there are names for different types of fills, but I don't really know what the bag makers' names are for fills or how they distinguish it. This is how I classify them. So from going forward now, you'll know, or if you watch my reviews, you go back, when I say, and I say that there was a point when I first started doing reviews early on, I didn't know a lot about the fill, so sometimes I would misidentify fill, or I would classify the flat as flat disc and so forth like that. So there is some in the first 6 months, 8 months of me doing this, it was a learning experience for me. Maybe be careful with those, but the more recent ones, when I say disc or flat or round or a mixture of flat or a mixed fill, when I say mixed fill, it means it has round in it. If I say a mixture of flat, it's flat fill and disc fill. And then if I say 100%, it's 100% of one or the other. Sometimes it'll have all three of them in there. It's tough to identify again when you're filling bags to know exactly what's in there. And sometimes a bag, if it has a small percentage of a bead in there, I may not recognize that round bead in there. I may only feel the flat. Sometimes I misidentified that. But let's go ahead and dump this bag out. I'm going to show you the fill in here. And let's see if we can find any round beads in here. Again, I spent, I think it was 85, 90 bucks in these bags just to do this, just to be a little childish with this. So, but I thought I'd make this educational. Let's do this. And in fact, I used to love Andy with B3 Cornhole. He does bag surgery videos. If you haven't seen those, go check that out. He opens up bags. He talks about the materials, talks about the inside of the bags, shows you the stitching. He knows more about the bags than I do, being a bag maker. He knows what to look for when he's talking about bags. So anyway, let's jump in here and look. And really all I see here is there is flat fill and there's flat disc fill. As I mentioned, I don't see any round fill in here whatsoever. And I'll get a picture of this and show it for you. But I don't see any round beads in here. So when I said this bag was 100% flat fill or a mixture of flat fills, I feel like I was right. I don't see any beads in here at all. And that's why when I did this review, I talked about the bag 10 to 1 to hang on the hole. It wasn't as hole friendly as some other bags out there. And this is exactly why. This fill is more forgiving. This flat fill is more forgiving. As you saw here, it doesn't spread out. It's not as hole friendly. And that's why when I talked about that in the review, that was one of the knocks. And anytime I talk about a flat fill bag, I talk about how it tends to hang on the hole. Again, you can have a flat fill bag that drips in the hole. If it lines up just right and hits the hole just right, it can still drip in, especially if the materials are hole friendly. If you get a material that's not as hole friendly and then you put flat fill in there, it really becomes a bag that requires accuracy. So anytime you have a non-hole friendly material, take a slow carpet bag, a slow carpet bag that has a 100% flat fill or especially 100% disc fill in there, it's a bag that requires you to be extremely accurate, because if you're missing at all left or right, the bag may grab the hole, but it's probably going to hang there. And sometimes when they're hanging there, if they're hanging on the back edge, they're tougher to collect. That's why I like my slower bags to have more round or 100% round, because I can take a less hole-friendly material, put a hole-friendly fill in there and kind of counteract the two. And that's why I'm okay with my faster bags having more flat fill, because faster material tends to be more hole friendly. So I can sacrifice a little bit of the hole friendliness of the fill because I can make up for it with the hole friendliness of the material, if that makes sense. And that's the trade-off, and that's the balance that you have to find. But that's why, to me, I say the fill of the bag is the most important part, because it's where you can make the biggest changes in how the bag plays. Again, materials matter, but you can have two bag companies that use the exact same materials, but they have a different fill ratio, a different fill mix, or they use, one uses disc fill, one uses round fill, and the bags are going to play completely different, and you may love one bag and not the other. And that's why I have to be careful, because I hear people all the time say, oh, the bags are all the same, it's the same materials, they're all the same. They really aren't. Just because you like the material of bag A, you may not like bag B, even though it has the same materials, because it has a different fill in there. So hopefully this demonstration helps clarify what I'm talking about when I talk about fill. Hopefully it answers a lot of your questions. If it doesn't, it may raise more questions. And if it does raise more questions, drop them down below in the comments or shoot me a message. And if I need to come back another video to clarify, I will. But hopefully this will give you a better understanding of when I'm talking about fill, what I'm referring to. Again, I'm not going to speak for other people out there that do reviews or other bag companies. They may have different terminology, different ways of describing their fill. There is no industry standard for this in cornhole yet. It would be nice at some point if there is. It'd be nice if there's an industry standard for speed scales. There isn't that there, so you always have to take what I say here and apply it to my reviews, but don't apply it to other people's videos, other people's reviews. Don't apply it to the bag makers' websites, because they may describe the fill differently than I do. And they may say a mixed fill when it's actually just disc and flat. And to me, mixed fill has to have beads unless I specify a mixed flat fill, right? So just understand that this applies to my reviews, my videos, my lingo. And my goal here is just to give you as much knowledge as I can give you so that you can go out there and make your own educated decisions when it comes to choosing bags. So hopefully this helps you. Hopefully you like this. Again, if you have more questions or if I didn't answer something that you want to answer, drop a comment down below or shoot me a message. I'll be happy to answer that or maybe do another video if I need to. As always, I thank you guys so much for your support, and I thank you for watching.